What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Geeks and Company. My name's JS. Right over here, that's my buddy Jeff. And that's right, this is another episode of the after show for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, season 2. What are you pointing at?
The after show.
Oh, the after show. Yes, the after show. There you go.
That's right. Hey.
For Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds, season 2, episode blah.
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Folks, before we get started, if you're not already following us here on YouTube, please make sure you click that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We love the support. It helps propagate these videos to the YouTube realm. If you have not watched, at the time of this recording, today's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, go watch it before you watch this, because we will be spoiling a lot of stuff in this episode. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening here, and I think we can't really talk about it without spoiling it. So, spoiler warning, folks. Go watch it, then come back. Mr. Jeff.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fan-fucking-tastic.
You were just saying how
this episode.
So you really like this episode?
My God. This episode is what season 2 of Picard should have been. And I'm going to put a little caveat in there for anybody that's watching that's not Canadian. You may not get quite as much out of this episode as myself and my fellow Canadian here do get out of this episode, because a huge chunk of this episode takes place in Canada, in Toronto, which is like 2 hours down the road for me and about 45 minutes down the road for that guy. So the familiarity that was bred in this episode for us Canadians was... It hit a certain place in my heart that I wasn't expecting it to hit.
Well, for the people that don't know, Star Trek, all of the Star Trek shows are filmed right here in Toronto. So I think it only made sense that they would base it in Toronto, and they even play with that, because when they show up, Kirk's like, "Oh, I think this is New York City," and then she looks at him and she's like, "Dude,"
she's like, "Hey, dum-dum,
Toronto," and she says, "This is Toronto."
Right there.
She says it as an Ontario person. This is
Toronto.
She's like, look at the sign, bud.
So almost every other show, there's a show I used to be in love with called Orphan Black, which was also filmed in Toronto, but they would actually digitally change signs in the background to make it look like another place. I love the fact that they leaned so hard into the fact that they were in Toronto, in Canada, right around our time frame.
Yeah.
Genius. Canadian money, Toronto police. The CN Tower is shown a bunch of times. The cop in the cop car is drinking a fucking Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? So, if you're not Canadian, they go into our roots, for God's sake. Yeah. So if you're not Canadian, you might not get as much out of it, especially if you've never been to Toronto. You might not get as much out of it as someone like myself, who's been to Toronto a ton of times, would. That was, for me, very, very, very cool aspect of it. But this is easily one of my favorite episodes that I've seen in quite some time. I fucking loved this episode. The emotionality of this episode, the dilemma that they're both faced with, the choices they have to make, all the different references that we got. And time travel. Yeah, kids, there's time travel in this episode, but it's not done in such a schlocky way that like it was done in season 2 of Picard and stretched out over too long a period of time. It was, they went on a very specific mission to stop a Romulan incursion into the past to change the future. And it worked. And everything was kind of back to normal, but this was La'an's episode. So if you like La'an, you are going to absolutely love this episode. And I'll tell you what, I was not a huge fan of La'an before this episode, but I am on fucking board now, because I thought she just killed it in this episode.
Yeah.
And same thing with the Kirk haters out there. I get why we don't like this guy as far as casting goes, but I think he did a pretty good job in this episode.
He was more Kirk in this episode than he was last season, for sure.
Cocksure, headstrong, charming as fuck.
Yeah,
smooth.
He was more Kirk now.
Yes, agreed.
So
you get the sense that the Kirk in the current timeline isn't there yet. Like he's still kind of finding his way, whereas the Kirk we got in this episode from the alternate timeline has been through the shit and has become the Kirk that we know. So I even like the fact that they played it like that.
A couple things. For one, I don't know if you remember, but when I think maybe it was for the first episode, or maybe even on a podcast when we were talking about the trailer, and the promotional material that had come out, and I had pointed out that Kirk was wearing captain bars.
You were right.
No, they're calling him Lieutenant Kirk, right? In
our timeline. Yes, that's right.
Lieutenant Kirk. He's not a Captain Kirk.
That's right.
Captain bars on his uniform, and we were like, what the hell? Like, how are they going to make him captain already in season 2? Well, this, right? He's not actually a captain, but when the timeline changes, all of a sudden, he's the captain of the Enterprise, right? So that was well played.
Yes. In the United Earth Fleet, by the way, guys. So let's not be, this is an alternate timeline, not an alternate dimension. This is not like the mirror dimension with the Terran Authority or whatever that we've seen on Discovery. This is an alternate timeline because timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. So,
well, I guess the idea is the Romulans have gone back. They've done a terrorist attack on Toronto. On the world government. There's a world government right now in place. They know about Romulans and they're trying to stop alien invasion, and they've built this cold fusion reactor that's hidden in Toronto, and they've blown up this cold fusion reactor, and that has caused a chain reaction that has completely changed the time
because of who dies in that explosion. Who dies in that explosion, JS?
Mr. Khan Noonien Singh himself.
Khan!
Yeah. So we get to see Khan at the end.
We do.
But he's just
a young
child,
Khan. Yeah.
Right? He's just a little boy.
In Canada.
Khan's
Canadian. You heard it here first. Hashtag Khan's Canadian.
Yeah. Khan is Canadian.
Wolverine, Khan. We got all the cool bad guys.
I think that when they announced that they were going to bring Kirk back for this season, and I was like, why are we making Kirk a main character on it? Like, this is not supposed to be Kirk's Enterprise. Like, I know I've had this rant multiple times. I'm very happy how they did this.
Yes, me too.
They didn't bring him back as a regular cast member and a crew of the Enterprise.
Nope.
It was, again, a timey-wimey thing that brings Kirk back, and I loved it. Because I got to see Captain Kirk, not Lieutenant Kirk.
That's right.
I will admit, I'm generally not a huge fan of Trek going back in time to modern times.
Same.
I feel like it's just a way to cheap out and shoot an episode with no budget.
Agreed.
Right? It's like, well, we don't have the money to do a proper special effects show, so, man, let's just set it on current time Earth. And it's like, well, fuck, man, we live on current time Earth.
You're not
watching Star Trek to see Toronto. Right?
But if it's done well.
And this was done well.
So this gave me Voyage Home vibes, not Picard season 2 vibes.
Yes, 100%.
They kept it light enough and humorous enough, and you can see the two of them falling for each other, and you know it's going to end in tragedy. Either Kirk's going to die, spoiler alert, Kirk dies, or his timeline gets erased and he never was that version of Kirk. Well, we know that's going to happen, so we know that they're going to fall for each other. They don't actually participate in coitus. They just share a couple kisses on the street and then shit goes to hell. But, by the way, I did enjoy the foreshadowing at the beginning of the episode when Pelia, played by Carol Kane, is talking about her time spent in the U.S. in the past, accruing all these priceless artifacts. And then La'an remembers while she's in the past, wait a minute, I fucking know somebody here.
I know somebody that's here.
Very nicely done how they tied that in. When I realized they were in the past and about halfway through it, I'm like, oh, so that's why they showed us this to foreshadow that. But when they were showing it to us at the beginning, I had no, I'm like,
you don't make that connection.
No. So that for me, when the foreshadowing is not like right in your goddamn face, I appreciate that. That's good. I thought they did a really good job with it.
And this has been set up since episode 1, right? Because they told us right off the bat in episode 1 that she's what do they call her?
Lanthanite? I think Lanthanite. Yeah.
And that they've been on Earth for thousands of years. That blah, blah, blah. So this has been set up right from episode 1. Right. And I almost feel like the reason they made her a Lanthanite was just for this episode. The whole point of her being 1,000 years old or whatever it is
so they could work her into this
so that they could work her into this episode, I think.
Yep. No,
and it
I agree.
Real well, because we fell for it, dude.
Hook, line, and sinker, brother. They had me. No.
Dude, like, big time.
So I do have a question for you because I'm not well versed in Enterprise because I didn't get all the way through that. at the end of the episode, after everything is done and La'an is back on her ship in her proper timeline, she's visited by someone from the temporal authority, the temporal department, something. Now, I know on Enterprise, there was a lot of temporal things. So is the organization that's quoted in this episode, is that a callback to Enterprise?
Okay. And it's the same that was also on Voyager.
Okay.
Right? Because they were also facing off against, remember the time ship relativity?
Right.
Yeah. Also from the temporal
whatever
temporal it's called,
police department,
right?
Time cops, basically.
Time cops.
Not to be confused with the cool
Jean-Claude Van Damme here, but they're basically time cops, and I want to jump to the end right away because I want to ask you what your thoughts on this, because at the end, obviously, La'an breaks down because first thing she does is she calls Kirk. And then Kirk obviously has no clue who the hell she is, right? And she completely breaks down because, she's obviously now fallen for this guy who is not this guy, right? So the guy she fell for is dead. Let's be honest here. The Kirk that is in our timeline is not the same Kirk, right?
Nope.
So she breaks down and cries, and you've got some music, and then the music intensifies. And as the camera pulls out, it blurs her out, and it focuses on the goddamn watch sitting on the bench, and then black screen, it ends.
Yep.
So what's the deal with the watch?
I think the watch represents two things. By the way, personally, I want to point out that's where it got me, man. I'm not gonna lie. Remember last week when you were like, did you cry in this episode for Una? I was like, no, not at all. When La'an breaks down at the end of this episode,
it's emotional.
You fuckers got me, man. Like, because she's been so tight and straight-laced the whole first season and the first couple episodes, and she's got that hair just like pulled back so goddamn tight, and she's so closed off, and she breaks down. And kudos to the actress. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. But the way she breaks down,
great job.
You're right there, man. You feel it. So they got me. 100% they got me.
Yeah.
But I think so. Obviously, the watch represents her memories of Kirk. They even had a little fight about it, like who gets to wear the watch or whatever.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's obviously a remnant from her time adventure, which she's not allowed to talk about or tell anybody about. Like, she shouldn't have the watch. I mean, she's got the clothes from Root still, but the watch is specific to that time, to that place. It played a part in the adventure. I think I think it's going to be a problem.
I was just going to say,
I think it's going to be a problem.
Somehow we're going to find out that this timeline still isn't quite right because of the watch.
Maybe. Now, because it's episodic, it may end up being just something that's kind of gets a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge every now and then. You know what I mean? Like a little, the watch from that thing. But I wouldn't be mad if they were like, well, because this watch is still here from that timeline that doesn't really exist anymore. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly shenanigans. Like, yeah.
She also tells her not to discuss it.
Yep. With anybody, not even
the
captain.
Anybody. Not even the captain. That being said, Pelia. So she obviously knows because she would remember.
Well, here's the thing. Pelia made a point of saying earlier in the episode, I'm terrible at remembering faces. She literally says that out loud early in the episode, and I think that was their out.
Okay.
That she's not going to remember something from 300 years ago that she saw for 20 minutes in her shop because she's already terrible with faces because she's lived 20,000 years or whatever it's been. She literally talked about being around with Pythagoras when he made math. She was there. So, like, she's been around long fucking time, thousands of years on Earth.
And she's not even an engineer yet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she made a point of that. I think that was the same thing. I think they pushed her in that, like, she becomes an engineer in the future because of what they said to her in the past, kind of thing. They kind of get her down the road a little bit on it. So that's a cool little nudge. I do think I find it interesting that, and I understand she's a huge star and that's why, but Carol Kane's name doesn't appear in the opening credits. She's at the end.
Really?
Yeah.
So that means she's not technically a regular on the show yet.
Right. Her name appears in the end credits as like also starring or featuring or something.
So we may not get her in every episode.
Sorry, I'm just watching it. Yeah, guest starring somebody, Adelaide somebody or other, and Carol Kane. So it is saying guest starring Carol Kane. So she's clearly not. My guess is it's going to be like, for my Harry Potter fans out there, she's going to be like the chief engineer position on the ship is going to be like the professor. The Dark Arts. Yeah. There's going to be a new one every season
of engineers
until we get to Scotty, and then
So, which I hope
I'm fine with.
Yeah,
if there's a fifth and final season, you got to have Scotty on for that. In fact, like I've said before, I think the show ends with the Enterprise bridge crew, like the one that we know from the 60s. Like that's what you get in the final episode.
Yeah,
that would lead it, kind of like your Rogue One at the end with the Tantive 4 and Leia with the plan. You know what I mean? The end of Rogue One is literally seconds before A New Hope begins. That's kind of how I want this show to end. I want the show to end literally with a pullback shot of fucking Sulu and Uhura and Kirk and Spock and McCoy and Scotty, like all of them, right? All of them that were there for that first episode. That's what I would like to see, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure looks like it's leading down that path.
Yeah. You don't want to inundate people with legacy, but
no, I don't want it to be a show about the Enterprise that we already knew, right? This needs to be a show about, Pike's Enterprise.
Yes.
With Pike's crew, not Kirk's Enterprise with Kirk's crew.
I want 5 seasons of this crew. I just want that crew at the end of the 5th season. That's all I want. If that's how long this was going to go. Well,
I'm going to say 7.
I just assumed it's going to be a 5-year mission, right?
Let's just go back to old Trek days and hope we get 7 seasons. But either way,
we're going to find out.
But you guys let us know what you're thinking. Did you like this episode? I know Michael liked this episode. Because Michael was like messaging me like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?"
For me, this whole season's been an absolute fucking banger so far. Like, if I was at all worried this season wasn't going to live up to last season, and maybe I wouldn't appreciate it as much if season 2 Picard's time travel had been handled so fucking terribly compared to this. Like I said, very Voyage Home, very not season 2 Picard. But yeah, oh my god, for me, they're 3 for 3. Like they've and 3 completely different episodes from each other.
Yeah.
So it still is feeling very episodic.
Yeah.
But all 3 are bangers. And I got to just real quickly, I'm really starting to like Mabanga. I'm really starting to dig his vibe. How he's kind of like doing a little bit of the ship counselor deal as well as, and you can tell how many hidden demons and closets, skeletons in his closet he's got.
You can tell there's a lot going on there that we don't know about.
No.
There's a lot more
fascinated by his character now. Whereas in the first season, it was mostly about his daughter and all the stuff that was going on there. But now the intrigue, like Mabanga's backstory has got me more intrigued than that other after show that we do for Secret Invasion there. Like, I don't care who Skrulls are. I want to learn more about Mabanga and what he did in the Klingon War and everything else. Like, I really want to get to the heart of that character. But anyways, regardless.
Yeah, no,
we've had 3 very single character based episodes.
Yes.
Right? Episode 1 was Spock. Episode 2 was Una. Episode 3 was La'an. Let's see who's going to get featured in episode 4.
Do you think that's what all the whole season is going to be?
I don't think so.
Every episode is going to be very.
I feel like a lot of the first season was centered on Pike. And if it wasn't Pike, it was still very like Uhura definitely got an episode in the first season, but the first season felt more ensemble-y, and we didn't really get to know some of the ancillary characters. And now we are like, there's no way we're not going to get it in Ortega's episode. We are 100% going to get an Ortega's episode because we barely know her. We just know her as the cool kick-ass ship's helmsman, but we don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
So that's I'm digging it. I don't need 10 episodes. Each one gets their own, but I am liking these very character-centered episodes the way they've done them so far.
Are you okay with the fact that in 3 episodes we probably got less than 10 minutes worth of Pike?
No, but it's my only gripe. Daddy's coming. Don't you? Daddy's.
Yeah,
Daddy's,
I mean, I don't think that I necessarily need Pike-centric episodes. But I feel a little bit weird about this being Star Trek and this being Pike's Enterprise.
And he's largely been absent for the first 3 episodes.
And you barely see him at all. Like in this episode, you see him. He has one line at the end.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. Agreed.
You know? So that's a little bit weird. Again, not to put down what they're doing because listen, I'm buying what they're selling.
Oh, they got my money. I'll tell you that right now.
It's a great show so far.
Yep.
For me, this episode was probably the weakest of the 3 that we've gotten so far.
Oh my goodness, really?
Just because of like I said, I'm really not a fan of the whole let's go back to modern times, but it was very well crafted regardless. So
yeah,
no,
that's fair, man.
Let's see where they go from here.
Yeah.
But guys, make sure you click that like and subscribe button. If you want to see more, make sure you let us know below. I think that's going to be it for today. Stay geeky, everybody. May the force be with you.
Oh, live long and prosper, you nerd.